Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you are getting ready for any emergency, a natural disaster, a financial reset, or any other scenario where it's just a really bad day, having a well-stocked home medical kit and the right training can be a lifesaver. Today, we're gonna dive into everything you need to know about creating your own medical kits for home and outside the home, essential items to include, and how to train for medical emergencies when help might not be available. Having a home medical kit and knowing how to use it can give you the ability to treat injuries, illnesses, and even life-threatening conditions when professional help is out of reach or not functioning. We've had it good for so long, and it's hard to imagine life not being the way it is now and our medical system not functioning the way that we've been accustomed. If you take one thing away from this episode, get correct training while you can. Get training that best fits your situation, and get training for your family that's appropriate for everyone's ages. Let's build some kits together. We're gonna start with your main home medical kit. This is the big one. This covers a wide range of scenarios. You should have supplies to address minor cuts and burns, as well as more serious injuries or medical conditions. And yours may be different than mine, and that is absolutely wonderful. If you're anticipating issues in your area with your family and plan accordingly, that is awesome. So here's what I have included in my medical kit. So let's open this up. And right away, you can see there's some hockey tape on the top, some gloves, which are really important to have, and some syringes, large syringes, so I'll get to those in a minute. But let's take a look quickly at what's on the lid here. So I've got a little pen flashlight. Oftentimes when there's a splinter or a stinger or something like that that you need to have that fine focus on, you need to be able to have a bright light. So that does that. I also have a backup light or a hands-free light. So we've got a headlamp here as well. And this is one that we used for camping years ago, but now it's been relegated to sitting in the first aid kit. So keeping going here, we've got a little temperature taker, a little paper one. There's a scalpel, and then again for pulling out splinters or stingers, got a nice pair of tweezers. This is a tongue depressor here, some Q-tips, and another smaller pincers. These are for getting splinters out as well if the tweezers aren't going to work for you. So going on, really we want to talk about the first things first. And the first thing that I would be concerned with is bleeding, because that is how we expire quickly if we bleed. So we've got various things in here. I've got rolled gauze and also ways to attach that. Like I said, I've got the hockey tape here and bandages and triangular bandages if those aren't enough. I've also got square gauze in here of various sizes. This is a large one, and it says it's a abdominal compress. And then I've got a lot of these 3x3 gauze pieces. So it's great to have lots of this around, and you never know what kind of injury you're gonna run into. So having various pieces of gauze. And I tend to like this kind of gauze because you can put it on an injury, but you can also use it by rolling it as a compression on there. You get that direct pressure that it takes to stop bleeding effectively. So let's keep going. So I want to talk about how we disinfect wounds. So if you've got something like a big scrape or some sort of laceration, you want ways to be able to deal with that. So there's betadine solution here, as well as Bactine first aid spray. This has a little bit of analgesic in there, so it makes things feel just a little bit nicer if you get a real raw scrape or a burn, and we're gonna talk about burns in a minute as well. I also do have some burn relief stuff that I'll talk about, but these are the disposable wipes that you commonly see in first aid kits as well. So various different solutions for taking care of the disinfection of a wound. Let's talk about pain relief. So inside this first pouch, we have small packages of various over-the-counter pain relief. And I'm not gonna get them all out because I've done some B-roll that shows all of those clearly. But even for throat pain, if you've got a sore throat, there are lozenges that will help with that. We've got some other things as well. So this is a pain relieving patch if you've got some muscle pain going on that's out of the ordinary. And then we've also got some poison ivy care. So this is specifically for an allergic reaction that you've had with a plant or something of that nature that is causing a reaction. All sorts of different ways to treat different types of pain. I'm gonna go on to thermometers, and I already showed you this little thermometer. We have a regular thermometer, a digital thermometer, and a mercury thermometer in our flu and cold kit that sits in our cupboard. And that's a different whole kit than this one, but that has cold and flu medications and other things, because that's the most common time that you would need that thermometer, is when dealing with cold and flu symptoms. Another common first aid issue that is around the home is a sting. So again, we have the light, we have tweezers of multiple sizes, and then after you get that out, you need to treat it with something. So this first aid spray is specifically for stings, burns, scrapes, things of that nature. You can spray this on the actual insect sting or bite, and that gives them some relief of pain, and it also cleans that wound in the skin. So I'm going to talk about more of an advance, because with our family, we have someone that is allergic to bee and wasp stings. So we have an EpiPen that is in here. We have another one in another location. So we have a couple around the house, but this, know how to use it, learn how to use it. Your pharmacist can help you with that, but make sure that they stay up to date. They have an expiry. Make sure that you have these if you've got someone that has that as an issue. Another common injury that can happen around the home is an injury to a joint or a limb through falling or tripping or something like that. And maybe you've got a joint that needs immobilization. So we've got in here triangular bandages and they've got safety pins right in the package. So you can make up a sling for someone. You can tie up a splint if you need to with these, and they just are a real multi-purpose. You can affix a dressing in a bleed situation. So you've got your gauze already, and then you can use a bandage, this triangular bandage, to really get some pressure on that and help that bleeding get under control. Before we move on to more advanced pieces of this kit, I want to talk first about manuals. So this is one out of just a small first aid kit, and it gives the basic information about first aid. So we just keep that in there. But I also have here actual first aid manuals from the courses that I've taken over the years. I've got military versions of the first aid. And then if you want to go beyond first aid, this is a book that I recommend because it really goes over, it says, the essential guide for when help is not on the way. It's when you're in that situation where our typical medical system that we rely on is not functioning normally. And what I did with this book is I took it to bed with me actually for a number of weeks and just read a chapter in it every night and learned a lot of different medical skills, at least learned about different medical skills. I'm not saying that I'm an expert at any of them, but at least I've read up on them and can, if I get in that sort of situation, I can at least have some knowledge of those things. On top of reading about them, I've also practiced some of these things, and we'll get into that in the advanced portion of this kit. And this is just the start. I'm gonna focus on some medical care that's beyond just first aid in just a second, and I'm gonna go into the pieces of this kit that help you with that. Okay, so let's move on to some more advanced first aid or medical care. Let's talk about tourniquets. Tourniquets are a specialized item that require training in order to use correctly. So make sure you get some training on tourniquets before you just have it in a kit as an item. Going on to hemostatic gauze. This is to control heavy bleeding where you're having to pack a wound that is really bleeding profusely. This gives you that extra edge where you can compound that with other gauze, get that direct pressure going, and hopefully stop that bleeding faster than just with plain ordinary gauze. So I have this as part of my kits in the vehicles, which you'll see in a little bit, as well as tactical kits, as well as one in the home. I want to talk about burn dressings because burns are one of the most common injuries around the home, especially in a grid down or a rough situation. You're gonna have burns because people are using fires, they're using different ways that they're not used to using fuel, ways to cook things, so you've got burns happening possibly. So this is a burn pain relieving gel, so it's specifically for treating burns, and I think it's a great option to have in there, as well as the Bactine first aid spray. So for a lighter burn, you're gonna be able to treat these. And the big thing with burns is you always need to have clean gauze available. You're gonna need a lot of gauze over the time that it takes to heal that burn. So always make sure you have enough gauze on hand to do something like that if you can't get a resupply. Oftentimes we think of just in the moment treating a wound, but it's that ongoing healing process, especially in the case of a burn, that you may need more gauze than you think. A couple things that I forgot to mention are having a good pair of snips to cut bandages and gauze, but I also forgot to mention that we do have one of those instant, and more hockey tape, but we have one of those instant pain relief cold packs that are great if you have a break or a sprain. These are an instant way to provide pain relief and control swelling on a break or a joint injury. Let's have a little conversation about more advanced medications like antibiotics. Able in your jurisdiction to have antibiotics on hand for emergencies, I would recommend that you do that, but follow your local laws in that regard. Another thing that we can talk about is eyewash. Eye injuries are another important thing that we need to protect ourselves from because they are very common. There's been a few times in my life where I've had to go to the hospital or the medical clinic to get something removed from my eye because it blew in there or something happened. So we have various options for that. We've got some eye drops that you can use for something. You can wash out your eye, but I also have this saline sterile solution that you can use as an eye wash. Losing the use of one or both eyes is a terrible thing in a rough situation. So you want to have this challenge mitigated, and I would recommend getting an eye wash product for that use. One of the more advanced pieces of equipment that we keep in this, and this is a personal choice, is a suture kit. This gives us the ability to close up larger wounds and cuts that require more than just a butterfly type closure bandage. And I would never suggest going this route unless it's the absolute last resort and you do not have access to our current medical system. Again, this is not medical advice for you, but you need to make your own choice for what you are going to have in your home for when the medical system may fail you and not be able to provide the service that we enjoy now. So when I originally opened this kit, I had these large syringes. These large syringes are for wound irrigation primarily. They are to take this saline solution and be able to clean a deeper wound or a larger wound so that it does not become infected. And if it does become infected, to be able to clean that infection out and provide the environment to heal that wound. Again, this takes training and knowledge that you need to build before an event actually happens in order to use it correctly. One of the biggest issues humans have is dealing with body temperature changes when it comes to stress on our body, and it creates shock. One of those ways to mitigate that is to give them a little bit of warmth. So this is a rescue blanket. We've got a whole bunch of them in there, and that's really for if we're outside the home and it's not easy just to get a regular blanket or something. We can use that, cover someone up, and provide that instant little bit of protection against shock. In this tour, you probably have been seeing these. These are SAM Splints. We've got a couple different sizes here. So this is a 36-inch one primarily for arms. And I guess down by your ankle, you could use this for sure. And then we've got a larger one for myself. I'm 6'4". I tend to use everything in an extra large. So this would be a SAM Splint for a large limb or joint. And then we also have down on the bottom, I've got a couple of finger splints. So the beautiful thing with these, and I'll just try to demonstrate this on camera, is the ability to form this. This is foam that has a layer of aluminum in between. So when you take this, you can actually form this with your fingers around something and it keeps its shape. You can see that. I'm not going to deform this one too much. So you can see how good it is to have something like a SAM Splint when it comes to immobilizing a joint. It's much better than just rigging something up. Now you can rig something up from anything, some 2 sticks and one of these triangular bandages or 2, but it's nice to have a SAM Splint along, because then you have something that is designed to bring comfort, designed to bring immobilization. It's exactly the tool needed for the job at hand. And lastly, I'll mention this before we move on to the other kits. I do have a little boo-boo kit in here as well, small amount of Band-Aids of different sizes and uses, as well as inside here, I do have pen and paper so that you can document things, which is always important, and I forgot to mention that earlier. Well, that was a quick look at our home medical kit. I'm going to get into some other kits, but this one you can see is completely customizable, and I hope this gives you some ideas for your own home medical kit and building that out correctly. Do the research, get the training as I'm going to talk about, and let's go on to the next kits. Another more compact kit that we have in our household is what we call our bleed kit. So you've got your tourniquet on the outside. You've got a large soaker bandage dressing for a large amount of blood. You've also got, well, I should start with the first things. We've got several different pairs of gloves in here. That's important for safety. So we've got that in there, as well as some Q-tips, some other gauzes. We've got quick clot as well in here. So that's something that's really important to have, that hemostatic agent. Underneath here, we've got more packages of gauze. We've got roll gauze. We've got square gauze in here. We've got hockey tape. We've got ointments to put on things. But mostly this is not a boo-boo kit. It is for a large amount of blood that's being lost. So you want to get in there fast. You want to get that clothing out of the way. You want to be able to use hemostatic agents if necessary. You want to have large amounts of gauze and dressings available to cover that, to get it to get that compression on that wound. And if necessary, you've got a tourniquet. Again, do your training with your tools so that you are comfortable and competent in using them. This is what I call our bleed kit, and we keep it right by the back door of our house. The reason we have it in a separate kit is because it's much more compact and you can just grab this and go. You've got the things to stop bleeding quickly, because with bleeding, it is very important to get that under control very quick. Here's another kit that I have. This one goes on my belt rig, which I take out on various adventures. And the real part with this is, again, it's for more of the bleeding type traumas. You've got your gloves, you've got gauze, you've got hemostatic agents in here again. You've got things to splint, you've got things to bandage. You've got things in here just for minor boo-boos and scrapes and stuff like that. And again, you've got a tourniquet there for a major bleed. But this is just that real quick trauma kit that I always take with me on all of the adventures. One thing that you'll notice that in all these kits, I do have quick clot and I have hockey tape and large amounts of gauze, because with gauze and quick clot and hockey tape, there's not much that you can't handle. Some people would say duct tape, but I like to use hockey tape for medical because it allows you to get this narrower band and wind things up, tie things up, get it attached well so that you can move on and do other things. This is the kit that I take when I leave the house, when I go on adventures, when I go to the range, when I go on various other missions. For those parameters, the contents of this case gives me pretty much what I need for those type of events. This last kit is a off-the-shelf one for the most part. So it is just a family first aid kit that we've made some additions to. And you can see when I talk about the vehicle, I want a tourniquet in that vehicle. I also want some quick clot as well, because bleeding is one of the big things that happens in any car accidents. There's also, we've got some various medications, of course, and gauze, and it is a little bit of a boo-boo kit, because the majority of the time, hopefully, that's what you're dealing with, is little things that happen, especially when you've got kids. You're gonna need Band-Aids.
Allow me to give you a little background on myself. I'm Marlon. On most days, I'm just a guy in a t-shirt. But after 15 years of disaster management and emergency planning, I've seen firsthand how critical it is to be ready for anything. My family has lived through blizzards, power outages, and even wildfires, one of which forced us to evacuate our town. I've done the training and have worked on municipal emergency planning committees, so I know how important it is to have a solid plan in place.
The next section is medical practices that you should know. Basic first aid knowledge. The most important thing that you can do is take some courses, get the training you need. This is just a manual from a first aid course. Take a first aid course at minimum. There's many other things you can take in addition to just first aid. You can get into trauma care. You can get onto something that, beyond the Band-Aid. You can get a special course on stopping bleeding. You can get into nursing care, different things, but go out and take the training that you would like to take. It's never a bad thing to invest in your mind, your knowledge base that you have for an emergency. Those are the things that are intangible. You can't buy that when it's go time. You just can't go out and buy the knowledge. You have to work on that knowledge. You have to learn it from someone who knows what they're talking about. And that's what I'm saying for you to do if you're into this. So just as important as having these items is knowing how to use them. And like I've said, I think I've covered that enough, but let's get into some different areas that you should be familiar with. Wound care, how to properly clean and dress a wound to prevent infection. Another thing that you should be very well versed at is CPR and rescue breathing. Basic CPR, first aid for heart attacks, breathing emergencies. You should know how to do these things. If you're watching this and you don't know how to do these things, find a course, get signed up, and do it. Splinting, how to immobilize a joint or a bone or a limb out of available materials to stabilize fractures. Now, I showed you some pre-made things like the SAM splint, which is an amazing thing, but you can make makeshift splints out of available materials. I choose to have some things with me that are made for that purpose because they are simply better. Burn treatments. Burns are one of the most commonly experienced injuries in an emergency. So what do you do immediately after someone has suffered a burn to reduce the damage to their skin and to their body? Know these things. Bleeding control. The proper method of applying direct pressure or using a tourniquet to stop serious bleeding. How do you use hemostatic agents? You need to learn these things before an event happens. So go out and take the training. You'll be glad you did. I've seen enough YouTube videos to know this one fact. People love looking at all the gear and everything because that makes us feel comfortable to go out and buy something, add it to a kit, and say that we're good. But having the tools is not enough. You need to train regularly to be prepared for these types of emergencies. You can take courses on CPR, you can take basic first aid, you can take wilderness medicine, or even advanced trauma care. Practice makes perfect. So familiarize yourself with your medical kit and review the techniques every few months. Review what's in there. These textbooks are available for you to reference for medical care in the event that our system is not functioning properly. Some are available for free from your local library, but I would recommend that you buy a book or two like this so that you always have them on hand. It increased my knowledge base and familiarization with all sorts of medical issues that I was not even aware of, even though I had done first aid for many, many years. Make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss out on the next episode of Disaster Preparedness 101. And drop a comment below letting me know which medical skill that you feel you need to work on most. I'd love to hear from you. The next section we're going to talk about is creating a family plan for medical emergencies. Number one is a communication plan. One of the most important things to consider is your family's communication plan in the event of an emergency. Ensure that everyone knows where the medical kit is and who is responsible for what tasks in an emergency. And of course, those things change depending on who's involved in what emergency. But when you start talking about these things and knowing where things are, it just becomes more natural in the actual event. So the next thing, number two, would be role assignments. For example, one person might be responsible for calling for help, calling 911 or whatever the number is in your jurisdiction, if it's possible, while another can focus on administering first aid. And if you have young kids, make sure that they know how to assist in a way that's appropriate for their age. Again, it goes back to where I said, get them training that's appropriate for their age. Number three is having regular drills. Practice mock emergency scenarios with your family. And this is something that I don't do enough. Try to make it realistic by simulating real-world injuries and treating them with the medical kit. The more you practice, the faster and more efficiently you'll be able to react when something does go wrong. I've seen it time and time again, and people have said it to me, well, I'll just rise to the occasion, or I'll just figure it out when the time comes. And I say, no, you might not. And that would be devastating, wouldn't it? So let's practice and let's get better at these things. Why not? Where to store your medical kit. Keep your home medical kit in a cool, dry place, away from direct sunlight. It should be easily accessible, but out of reach of small children. Also, store backups of critical items like medications, bandages, and gauze. Basically, the stuff that you're going to refill your kit with in a location. We keep ours in a separate closet in the basement that just has all the extra surplus items that we can then add to the different kits if we need to. It's a good idea to have more than one kit. That's why I'm showing you these 4. That's not to say that we don't have more kits than this. Actually, this is our home kit. This is the bleed kit. This is for my belt rig. This is for one of our vehicles. Then we also have medical kits in our go bags or bug out bags, whatever you want to call it. And we also have one that's in our camping gear, and it never leaves our camping gear, and it's specialized for camping. Here is my final thoughts on this. Being prepared for medical emergencies during a crisis is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself and your family. A well-stocked medical kit, coupled with the right skills and regular training, it could be the difference between life and death in a survival situation. If you take one thing from this episode, just as I said near the beginning, get the correct training, get training that best fits your situation, and get training for your family that's appropriate for everyone's ages. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you listening to me rant a little bit about first aid training and the importance of it. It's something, like I said, that I'm super passionate about. So make sure that you've subscribed and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Stay safe, and don't forget, preparation is the key to survival. You can learn survival through adventure, and you can get fit doing it. Survival Fit Adventures. Thanks for being here.